Having worked for Overkill for 30 years has seemed natural. New Jersey-born hard workers, we always knew what we were. I consider that a band career. Bobby Blitz Ellsworth is Overkill's fighting spirit. For almost 40 years, his steel wire scream has defined American thrash metal. Blitz may not be on mainstream magazine covers or part of the Big Four, but any experienced metalhead would tell you he's the heart of Overkill. He holds the mic, stomps the beat, and lets out a gut-wrenching shout on stage. Behind the light is a cancer survivor who had a stroke on stage. Those who survive thrash metal's decline. Bob Blitz Ellsworth doesn't require glitz. He simply needs a microphone, band, and screaming fans. He hasn't left for almost 40 years. Why has this man persevered while others have failed? His rise from New Jersey punk rocker to American metal icon may answer your question. Early life. Bobby Ellsworth was born in 1959 in New Jersey. Not glitzy like New York, but not calm either. His family was middle class, barely surviving after the Vietnam War, when protests and social instability swept the nation. Bobby was raised between extremes. His parents wanted him to be stable, study hard, and be typical. The rebellious sounds of punk, glam, and rock and roll filling the streets and radio stations. Bobby was unique from childhood. He was energetic, restless, inquiring, and bad at obeying norms. His amateur singer mother sung around the home to find equilibrium in household life. She was the first to inspire Bobby's love of music via feeling, not logic. Young Ellsworth loved Queen, Alice Cooper, and Iggy Pop, who had distinctive voices and exuded defiance. Despite not experiencing poverty or domestic violence, his childhood was alienating. In an interview, he claimed he wasn't noticed in school. Not academically gifted. Though hardly a troublemaker, he felt out of place. One feeling kept building inside him. Finding punk rock was like finding his first language. Bobby attended underground New York club gigs by the Ramones, Dead Boys, the Stooges, and New York Dolls like a thirsty man. Watching live music was his way of living in an unrecognizable culture. Bobby embraced punk like a religion, raw, authentic, and unashamed, as a curse on hypocrisy and an escape from mainstream culture. He started experimenting with the microphone not because he wanted to be a professional singer, but because he thought he'd go nuts if he didn't shout. Bobby never considered music art. It was the only way to survive. Early work. Bobby Ellsworth was a young New Jerseyan taking the mic in the 1970s, when punk was rocking New York clubs and heavy metal was forming. Without instruction or method, just instinct and an uncontrollable wrath. The Lubricants, a chaotic punk band, was his first band. Simple, shrill, and full of societal contempt. Punk had kindled his fire, but Bobby needed something stronger, more forceful, with depth and structure, not just mindless howling into a microphone. He paired up with bassist Dee Dee to find a new direction. Vernie is a talented musician and creative person. The two formed a new band with a clear goal, rebellion, and a sound that could break all traditions. Overkill began as a garage band covering Motorhead, Judas Priest, and Black Sabbath in 1980. They soon began writing their own work. A fierce mix of punk, speed metal, and hard rock produced a signature full-frontal assault sound that was quick, raw, aggressive, and unrepentant. Bobby was still developing his voice. He moved away from punk's uncontrolled yelling to a heartbeat scream, intense but controlled, rough but melodic in its distorted structure. In 1983, their demo Power in Black traveled through the East Coast underground like recorded carnage. Overkill became the face of East Coast thrash metal, opposing Metallica, Slayer, and Exodus on the West Coast. Bobby was shaped by these years. He adopted honesty from punk. He moved from metal to sound. That confluence created the Blitz vocal style, a metallic tempest of instinct and intelligence, chaos and control. From that raw foundation, he began the following chapter that would make Overkill and Bobby Ellsworth a giant in American thrash metal. Career success. If Metallica popularized thrash metal with multi-platinum singles, Overkill, led by Bobby Blitz Ellsworth, kept the genre's raw, feral, and uncompromising character. Overkill didn't ascend as fast as West Coast giants, but Bobby was the essence of their thrash empire, which began in the early 1980s. Even though their 1985 debut album, Feel the Fire, didn't top the Billboard charts, it shook the underground metal world. A statement of difference. Bobby's unrepentant attack dog vocal style gave Overkill unadulterated stage, energy, and controlled wrath, but it wasn't smooth or radio-friendly. His voice was unique, not designed to mix, but to relentlessly attack listeners. Bobby screamed like there was no tomorrow, and his intensity convinced many. The next years saw Overkill go forward with purpose. Taking over 1987 included harder riffs and faster tempos. In 1988, song structures matured under the influence, but degradation ensued. In 1989, Overkill and Bobby hit their artistic pinnacle. Emotional depth and lyrical darkness were lauded alongside the album's music. Not only did Bobby shout on this record, in wrath, he learned to whisper and wait before roaring. Listeners held their breath during those silences. That high point was followed by a deep fracture. Major collaborator Bobby Gustafson quit the band amid personal issues, a breach that never mended. Bobby kept Overkill going when many feared it would fail. He and Dee Dee. After reorganizing the band, Verney produced Horoscope, 1991, which critics called evolution without compromise. Overkill and Bobby exemplified creative loyalty and metal with their consistency. Overkill was overlooked by mainstream media while grunge, alternative, and new metal took over. Bobby kept the band going while others failed. 6 albums in 1992 to 1999 was a feat for Overkill without major label assistance. Each record had its own path. I Hear Black, 1993, leaned into doom, WFO, 1994, returned to classic thrash, and Necrokeen, 1999, boldly proclaimed they didn't need trends to live. In 1998, was diagnosed with nasal carcinoma, which threatened his most important weapon, his voice. Many thought it was the end. Bobby didn't rest. He returned to the stage without announcing or soliciting sympathy after treatment. In a rare sickness interview, he observed, the 2000s saw an unexpected rebirth. Bobby led Overkill to release albums roughly every 2 years while Slayer, Anthrax, and Megadeth broke apart. Killbox 13, 2003, Relics, 2005, Immortalis, 2007. Yet Ironbound 2010 was their biggest revival. The album pushed Overkill back to the top of the metal world, with Bobby's vocals regarded as furious as ever, possibly fiercer with age and grit. He hasn't stopped since. Critics and fans praised The Electric Age, 2012, White Devil Armory, 2014, The Grinding Wheel, 2017, Wings of War 2019, and Scorch 2023. Bobby may be the only thrash vocalist to maintain such intensity for 40 years. Along with Mike Portnoy, Phil Dimmel, and Mark Menke, he joined BEMD, a tribute metal band performing American classic rock classics. Bobby sang instead of screamed in BPMD, showing that beneath his steel armor, he loved music innocently. Without a Grammy, hundreds of millions of streaming hits, or major label backing, Bobby Ellsworth has something most stars can't buy. Respect. He never left his station, not merely because he screams well. No matter the audience size or era's tendencies. Bobby Ellsworth's unshakable conviction, uncompromising spirit, and utter certainty in his voice made him a beacon in metal's dark corners. Even though he is fiery on stage, Bobby Blitz Ellsworth is incredibly reserved off stage, almost enigmatic. He has avoided scandals and never utilized his personal life to gain popularity in more than 4 decades in music. Few family mentions, no celebrity gossip, and no controversial romances. Bobby disappears as he leaves the stage, as if he only lives when the riffs explode and he holds the mic. He married non-actress Annette Ellsworth in 1999. Metal fans were startled to learn that the two managed a tiny chocolate business in Nyack, New York. The person who roared at European festivals sold sweets in a tranquil town. Still, his brief glances show a multifaceted individual. He claimed introversion, someone who is disciplined and self-critical. He grinned and answered, "I've loved many times and I've chosen to preserve that for myself," when asked about love or marriage. Bobby has never verified or disputed being married and divorced, but underground sources have said so. An unusual position in rock, where private matters are typically public. Far from the beer-drinking rocker image, he likes animals, quiet mornings, and wine. He would drive hundreds of miles alone to visit a winery he loved, relax, and ponder. In a rare moment of transparency, he said, "I thought I could only exist on stage, but after the cancer, I learned to be motionless." In 1998, he was diagnosed with nasal carcinoma, which can kill a singer. It was a rude awakening for Bobby. After surgery and recovery, he performed and changed his lifestyle. Regular workouts, cautious food, and most crucially, treating music as a responsibility to sustain rather than a destructive addiction. In 2002, he had a minor stroke on stage in Germany. He was brought to the hospital and stopped touring. Just weeks later, he returned. No press conferences or TV appearances to narrate the ordeal. He screamed again. Bobby never acted heroically. It wasn't necessary. He keeps his personal life private because he feels if you live inside the music, you don't need to live again on social media or in the headlines. Meeting Bobby in person has shown him to be nice, witty, and a wonderful listener. His bandmates consider him a loyal friend. Bobby Blitz Ellsworth is an artist to his admirers, who have screamed with him for decades. Never flashy or artificial, and always knowing silence speaks louder than words. Influence and legacy. Bobby Blitz Ellsworth tried to stay the same in metal, where speed, technique, and image change with fads. He's never sought public taste, remade himself to get notoriety, or tried to make exaggeration fashionable for over 40 years. However, his reluctance to comply has made him an emblem of unwavering dedication, not celebrity. Record sales and chart places don't define Bobby's legacy. Countless younger bands look to Overkill for artistic and personal integrity. Shadows Fall, Havoc, Municipal Waste, Evil, and Power Trip have acknowledged Overkill's musical and philosophical influence. Play and live honestly, never compromise. Bobby is known in the underground metal community as the gatekeeper who prevented thrash metal from becoming mainstream. Despite screaming, he never complains. He's performed at Wacken, Hellfest, and Bloodstock, but also in small clubs with a few hundred diehards. For him, every stage deserves his all. Bobby's voice is another defining part of his reputation. In a genre where many vocalists sound same, his tight, high, aggressive, rhythmically controlled scream is unique. He's been called East Coast thrash's first steel-throated screamer. He may not have won a Grammy or been elected into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but the metal world has always loved him, where loyalty trumps awards. His impact goes beyond music. Many younger artists fighting between the spotlight and real life can learn from his modest, kind, and persistently onward life. He remarked, "Just get on stage, scream, and if the crowd is still there after the third song, it's a good day." Bobby's basic yet profound outlook on life may have made him a global metal icon. He kept his vow to the music that raised him from the start, without frills or glorification. Bobby Blitz Ellsworth's legacy evolves. It's a live cry, heard, learned from, and passed down generation after generation. Although many of his peers have retired or become shadows of themselves, Bobby Blitz Ellsworth, 66, still screams like the 1980s never ended. He offers unwavering thrash metal ferocity on stage and in the studio. Overkill intensified in 2024. The band began the Scorching the Earth tour, touring North America, Europe, and South America. Although bassist Edie Verney missed a few gigs due to illness, but Bobby kept the band going with a new lineup, proving his never-back-down spirit. After drummer Jason Bittner unexpectedly quit Overkill in August, they swiftly hired Jeremy Kling, previously of Venom Incorporated, to continue the tour. Bobby's scream remained continuous throughout the turmoil. In addition to live concerts, Bobby and Overkill will write and record their 21st studio album in mid-2025, with a 2026 release. Bobby smiled and replied, "We'll still be Overkill," when asked about the band's direction. "We don't need to change to survive." It's not stubbornness. It's a statement of artistic intent. Alongside Overkill, continues to perform with BPMD, a supergroup featuring Mike Portnoy, Phil DeMel, and Mark Menke. This project, focused on covering American rock hits from the 1970s, shows another side of Bobby. Not just a screamer, but a musician who can groove, interpret, and still find joy in exploring different musical textures. Outside of music, he resides in Vernon Township, New Jersey, a quiet area where he enjoys being close to nature, exercises regularly, and takes long motorcycle rides to keep his mind clear. There's no flash, no media circus. He lives the way his music sounds, rough-edged, but real. When asked about retirement, Bobby replied with a half-joking, half-serious tone. Bobby Blitz Ellsworth has never been one to seek attention with bold statements. He doesn't need to shout to be heard, because when he screams, an entire generation of metal knows it's real. No flashy awards, no television stages, no pandering to the market. He exists as a living testament to endurance, loyalty, and defiance. From the early days of punk in a garage to hundreds of fiery nights across Europe, from the cancer ward to the stage at Wacken, Bobby has never stepped away. He may not be the last one alive from the original thrash metal generation, but perhaps he's the last one still truly screaming. What do you think of Bobby Blitz Ellsworth's nearly half-century journey? Which Overkill song reminds you most of that unmistakable scream? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe to continue exploring the voices of metal legends who never go silent. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Goodbye.